So that was my Sunday long exercise routine. Long for me is usually 30 minutes. I will only invest about 15 minutes of activity, usually 4 times a week. Sometimes if I'm busy with the different work that I do, 3 times a week. And if I don't attain that personally, then I put it all at the end one day, maybe Saturday or Sunday, with a whole bunch of activity. And that's a pain in the butt. Those of you who work 50 hours a week or take care of kids, you know that time is precious. What I wanted to provide for you is a little bit of a framework on how to get exercise in your life. I have to think of an old doctor that I used to work with. She would say she doesn't like sweating. That's fair. I think for a beginner that's being introduced to exercise, you might not have to sweat. And if it doesn't resonate with you, there's ways to go about with slow types of exercise. But one way or another, whether you invest in cardio, resistance, or slow stuff, you have to do something. I mean, again, going back to the blue zones as far as population studies, most people that made it to being a centenarian, or most people who reverse their disease process, would have to have some form of activity. It's important to not wait till the last minute. The 3 types of exercise I'm going to talk about are based on how to get you motivated. I always say that it's better to go into your 60s and 70s and 50s with more muscle bulk. I think that some of the data shows that longevity is equal to low blood pressure, low pulse rate, and low body weight. But there's also data that shows longevity is equal to the speed at which you get off the floor and your jump height. And I'm not asking every 60 to 80-year-old to be a bodybuilder, but I'm just asking that you do your part as far as fighting disease. If you don't, then you'll be seeing one of my colleagues who will probably slam you with a lot of medicines or procedures. And that if it's necessary, it's necessary. But I think that even the work of Dean Ornish, the folks that were about to undergo bypass, when they switched over to a plant-based, fully plant-based, low-fat diet, the bypass was averted. So they did not have to have bypass within 3 months. And within 5 months, they continued to reap the rewards of a nutrition change. But Ornish's reversal also included not only nutrition, but group therapy, that's spirituality, exercise in the form of yoga, and then other manifestations of healthy. And it, again, population studies or the Ornish information, the data is out there that you got to do something. If you don't do anything at all, then these are the tips I want to give you. If you are a cardio person, that's cool. And these are the activities of cardio: bike, swim, run, dance like Zumba, or in some cases, high intensity interval training will get you to have a really fast heart rate. And some people will say that they don't have time. And that's the one problem with doing cardio, is that you have to have time. I think that to have a greater than 6 MET reading, and MET stands for metabolic equivalence. Greater than 6 METs is great, but you have to also sustain that for a while. Even rowers, if you've ever been to a Ivy League school, see these rowers, those guys are monsters, and they have cardiovascular resistance that really, I think, set the pace for our new data on high intensity interval training. I used to follow the guys on the crew team, and I was all bodybuilding back in the 80s, but they had cardio and they had power. Just because you do cardio doesn't mean you're not going to get toned or muscular. But that's where I'd like to suggest that if you are doing cardio and you have the time for cardio, maybe every day of the week, that's fine. But to be practical, 1 to 3 times a week, try to get that heart rate to a nice level. And everybody's maximum heart rate, the old formula is 220 minus your age, and you take 60 to 80% of that to be your target window for heart rate. As you're starting out, your heart rate will zoom fast because you're out of shape. And this is meant to be an educational video only. So if you're not my patient, you're not one of my warriors, then take this information to your doctor and see how it pertains to you. And challenge your doctor. If your doctor is overweight, overstressed, or it doesn't exercise, tell your doctor to go exercise, or tell your doctor to see me. The idea would be that if you have the time, dedicate the time. And these things don't require learning. The learning curve is very low. Maybe HIIT training, you might have to have a little bit of a learning curve. Maybe dancing, you might have to have a little bit of a learning curve. But compared to resistance training, everybody can do these things. But you just have to have a goal to reach. And whether it's you need inspiration, like you have to have a century competition that you're going into, or you have to have a marathon or a 5K or a 10K that you're going to enter. It's nice to have that challenge and that goal because it'll always move you forward as far as your training routine, especially when those of you who make excuses, and yes, I'm going to call you out, those of you who say, I can't do this, can't do that, I'm too busy. Well, guess what? Sooner or later, you're going to have to deploy one of these because your medical condition will just get worse if you don't. I honor the people who lose weight just with nutrition, but if you don't include one of these, that will eventually fall off the edge. And then you're going to become weak. And when you become weak and skinny, that's age. So we're trying to avoid bad age. So whether you choose one of these or not, try to kick some ass as far as your routine, as far as goal setting, and get to that maximal heart rate. Maybe even go past that. If you're one of my patients, I'll allow you to get to 80 to almost 100% of your maximal heart rate, as long as we're healthy. And if we're not healthy, I will help you get there. If you wanted a challenge, do this in a shorter time frame. If you do it in a shorter time frame, you'll be sprinting. And with sprinting, you'll develop that explosive power. Yes, with all these activities, even Zumba. The next thing I'm going to talk about is resistance. Guys that do resistance hate cardio. And I've always said that I hate it, but actually I love it. I think there's an endorphin effect that you can get out of this, meaning endorphin and enkephalin that gets released. I think that with a muscle pump, you can also get the same release. My challenge is that I have no time. And that's why I only invest 15 minutes at a time in my exercise. It takes me 15 minutes to get to the place I have to exercise. I'm there for 15 minutes, sometimes 10. I spend more time driving to the place that I exercise than actually staying there. As I stated, today I spent a long day because I didn't really exercise last week, so I had to owe myself that time. If you're going to do resistance, there's several ways to do it. You can do free weights, you can do machines, you can do band work, that's resistance too. And I've seen some interesting band work on with personal trainers and strength coaches, but I think that's fair. Kettlebells falls into weights. And then there's body weight resistance, and I honor that too. It might take longer to get you to the power or the explosiveness that you need, but body weight resistance, meaning Jack LaLanne, those of you who are my age, you'll remember Jack LaLanne on black and white TV, filming in what looked like a kitchen or a living room. And he would always talk about proverbs and spirituality and religion, but he'd also exercise every day. And I think it was meant to teach women that were staying home, that were watching TV during the day, but men started to watch, and it was pretty cool. And Jack LaLanne lived till mid-90s, I believe, and still fit. He would wear leotards. The idea would be that you can do this and deploy it and get muscle tone. You might have to, as the muscle starts to grow and the muscle becomes efficient, you might have to put more resistance, or more bands, or lower repetitions, higher weight on the machines. There's a plateau, so you'll probably have to just do more repetitions faster. That'll get you to the pump that you need. There's also some yoga that can incorporate poses and power, Ashtanga yoga. So there's certain yogas that also can get you thick and muscular and give you explosiveness. HIIT training typically is Olympics or powerlifting type movements that are done in succession without a break. It can be good for you. You have to be careful with form. Form is essential. I don't care which of these things, even the running. I've seen some runners and some cyclists, they're asking for trouble. Knees are gone by the time they have 10 years under their belt, and then they can't do that anymore. Then they got to go over to here or get a total knee replacement. So form is really important, whether it's the equipment or your running style or your shoes. It's important to get the advice from the sports medicine doctor. Don't just get out there. I told you that it's easy to deploy this because anybody can do these 3 big ones, including rowing. But if you don't have good form, then you're asking for trouble. If you have an injury already, you're asking for trouble, even if the injury is old. Same thing with the resistance. I'd say form is very important. After a while, when you're comfortable and you haven't been injured, then you can go sloppy. There's kind of benefits to doing negatives. It's when you get the weight up for your last repetition or two and you force some eccentric load. It's dangerous, so you have to be careful. But again, if you're not sure what to do, ask your doctor to send you a physical therapist, maybe an athletic trainer that works at a physical therapy center like Athletico. I love those guys. ATI, I don't really like. But I think that in general in Illinois, Athletico, hands down, is awesome. The last thing we'll talk about is slow activity. Those of you who are entering into this at a later age, this is where I'd usually suggest starting slow. And yes, even with slow activity, you can get to the prowess of having the same kind of cardiovascular fitness as a cardio guy, a runner, cyclist, or a swimmer. So typically hiking is one activity I take a lot of people to. It's easy. The learning curve is short. Walking in nature with hiking sticks, cool, because it lowers blood pressure. There's great benefits to that. But just using these activities, which burn less METs, whether it's hiking, walking, yoga, Tai Chi, or Qigong, and that's not all yogas. Some yogas are over here, but most yogas are really pleasant where you can kind of pick your speed. Nature therapy, it does get you, whether you're gardening, lifting soil, cutting, working with plants. I think that does give benefit too, but it will take a lot of that activity to equal this. Again, all this stuff is to benefit the body and the mind and the heart to be bulletproof to disease. When you engage activity, it helps the immune system become better functioning. When the immune system is better functioning and it's matched with a proper nutrition plan, your body can fight cancer. Your body will be ready for an infection. Your body will conquer the infection, reverse the cancer to get you to longevity without having any disease. All this stuff, bottom line with this is you have a couple different ways to engage activity. You should always practice really good form. And if you're not sure what to do with form, see me, see a good personal trainer, see a physical therapist, maybe a good chiropractor, and they can teach you about form if they're not too busy. And that's a problem with insurance. If you plan on using insurance to get you all this activity, or at least to help guide you, your insurance won't cover that stuff. Even if you go to a standard physical therapist or a nutritionist, your insurance will cover a visit, and it's truncated, and the person that's giving you the information during the visit has to be knowledgeable and hopefully think outside the box, because if they just give you that cookie cutter solution to start exercise 3 days a week and increase volume every month, I mean, that formula does work, but the nuances of getting past injury, getting to good metabolic equivalent drain, and having good rest and building up muscle depending on your age, the nuances are, they have to be personally planned. Anybody that tries to do this in a cookie cutter solution, you might get there, but you might get hurt or you might fail. And then when you fail, it's like, oh, I did all this for nothing. Whatever your situation is, whatever your medical problem is, whatever your economics, I mean, you know, I go to Planet Fitness, I pay $20 a month, and I can go to any Planet Fitness, and it makes it worthwhile to me because I can go outside the state of Illinois, I can go in the state, I can go to several different places. I just like that because I know what to do. There are options to do this stuff properly or engage this stuff. If you're unsure, get some help. If you're one of my patients, message me on Get Healthy, and I'll guide you to fine-tune this for summer. And if you haven't followed me on Facebook or Herbal 411, I have a kick-ass event coming in September where I'm taking a whole bunch of people to a bucket list. I like to do that all the time, but it's going to be cool. So check out I'll put the links down below. Don't forget to subscribe if this helped you, because I do these videos all the time, and this is my weight loss series. Or share this with other people who might be a little bit lost or just not motivated. So thanks for staying up until this point. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you at the next video. Just to give you a reference, 1 MET is the amount of energy needed or metabolic equivalents needed to rest. So even with rest, your body has to burn some energy. And with the measure being that is 1. I think it's 1 calorie per 2.2 pounds while resting. That's a formula roughly. But if you do slow activity, it gives you 3 METs that you involve yourself with. If you do fast activity, it gives you greater than 6. I've seen 12 METs. That's a lot. I've seen some of the Kenyans do, when I take care of the Chicago Marathon, the Kenyans always come through just fast as hell. every mile for 23 miles is just fast as hell. Unbelievable. But that's a level of human that is superhero.